Hello, lads and lasses of 3410. In this video tutorial, I'm going to show you how you can set up Project 5 with VIM. And before I get started with the technical stuff, I'm going to warn you first that it is going to be much more difficult than the other setups. And you should try this if you actively don't want to use the other ones. Don't do this because you don't want to learn the other ones. They are easier than this one. So make sure that you know what you're doing and make sure that you are familiar with VIM. Okay, so I'm going to get started. The first thing that you want to do is, of course, log onto the UGC Linux machines. And all right, there we go. You want to make sure that you have the project files on the machine. So I'm just going to get into the directory for my project files. So there we go. I have my P5 projects. And I'm going to remove this. So before we do anything, we can just do a make first, so that we have the binary up to date, which we are going to use in our demonstration for the debugging. So first I'm going to show you how you can use GDB with VIM. Then I'm going to show you how you can set up auto-completion using VIM. So I'm going to start with a vanilla VIM. So I'm going to remove my vimrc, okay, and remove my .vim. So don't do this if you have some setup already. I'm just backing up my configurations. So the first thing that you want to do whenever you are working with Vim is to install a plugin managers so that you can use plugins. And you really cannot develop for C or C++ in Vim without any plugins. That I mean, you can do it. It's just going to be much more painful than it needs to be. But if you are somewhat masochistic, then I cannot stop you. So the plugin manager that I tend to use is Vim plug. You can use any of the plugin managers you like, but I'm just going to use this one. So if you go to their website, here is the instruction for the installation. So basically just copy and paste this line of code into your terminal on your remote machine and press enter. And then in the usage section, they're telling you to put this code in your vimrc. So we are just going to copy and paste their example. And we are going to open our new vimrc. You can see it's an empty file, and paste everything in here. We don't actually need anything other than these two lines. So we're just gonna remove everything else. Okay. So to test that our plugin manager is successfully installed, we can check that by installing a color theme. Let's just search Vim color themes, water themes, Vim color schemes, and there's awesome Vim color schemes. And we are just going to take the URL, the second half of the URL that's after github.com, and put in our vimrc like such. It has to be between plug begin and plug end, and is going to have this syntax plug with a single quote with the name of the plugin in between. All right. So now we can source this file by, I think you cannot see my commands. Okay, we are going to source this file by typing so and %, and that means the current file. Now that this file is sourced, you can do plug install. Right, this command is available because we just sourced this file. Otherwise, you wouldn't have this command. So now it's going to download this plugin, and it says that it's done. It means that our color scheme is installed, and you can try. You can verify that it's working by doing color, and you should have something like Oceanic next. I like jelly beans, so I'm going to do color scheme jelly beans. All right, so this color scheme, the jelly beans color scheme, is not going to be available if your setup is not correct. So I'm just going to set this color theme globally over here. Okay. The next thing that is on our agenda is to get GDB to work with Vim. So we will need an interface to GDB. Vim does actually come with an interface, but it's disabled by default for whatever reason. To enable it, you can do pack add term debug. Okay, and optionally you can set this term debug wide equals to 1. What this does is that it just opens multiple windows for your debugging setup. And lastly, you may want to do a highlight debug PC. This is going to be the line that your program counter. This is going to be the line of program counter when you start debugging. Equals to, let's say, blue. Okay. And I'm going to put this in the end of my vimrc because I think that the highlight is going to be overwritten by the color scheme if we do it the other way. Okay. And this should be enough to get you started with debugging. So we are going to exit, and we're going to just vim dot. That means we are opening the current folder with Vim, and you should see this. Now you can do term debug with the binary, the name of the binary that you want to debug. In our case, is P5. Then you should be seeing this. On the upper left, that's the familiar interface to GDB. On the lower left, that's the output of the program that we are debugging. That's P5. but since we haven't run pfile yet, it's not printing anything. On the right, that's the source files, and we can browse the source files. For example, if we want to look at p5.c, we just press enter over here. I'm going to make the window a bit larger, and so we can interact with the debugger from the source files. And so, for example, if we want to set a breakpoint right after main over here, just put your cursor over here to break, and you should see there's a 1 over here, and that just means the first breakpoint. So now we can do run to start the debugging, and you can see that the program stopped here at the first breakpoint. You can step through the program by calling step, or you can call over to step over. We're going to call step now. And you can see that we moved to a different file, that's simulator.c. VIM is automatically doing that. We can keep stepping, and now it's now we see some output from the program. It says that no cache description is specified. Please use the -cache flag. And what this means is just that we run the program without passing any command line arguments to it, and it's not liking that. To see what kind of command line arguments we can pass, we can run p5 with the -help flag. You should see all the options that are available to you. My Chrome is making the text hard to see, so I'm going to move it out of the way. Okay, so you see all the options here, and here are some examples. We're just going to take the first example, right? Just copy this part and go back to Vim. So we can stop our current debugging and run it again, but this time with the command line arguments. All right, press enter, and now it should stop here again. So I'm going to clear the debugger output by pressing Ctrl L over here, and now we can step through the program again. And you can see that this output is just left over from the previous run. So we can do over, that means step over without stepping into functions. That's the same as next in GDB, but next is a keyword in Vim, and so people decided that they have to use over instead. So we do over, and over again. Now we can do step, step, and step again, maybe over this time. Yeah, so you can just go on and on, right? And if you want another breakpoint, just set a breakpoint here by calling break, and now you can do continue, and it's going to hit the other breakpoint. And in the GDB output window, it says that we hit the second breakpoint. And you can clear the breakpoint by calling clear. That the breakpoint is gone now. The other useful feature for this is that you can press capital K with your cursor on a variable to see the content of the variable. So if you press capital K, it says cache and set is 0. That's because this line haven't been run yet. If you call over again and do capital K again, you see that the variable is changed to the value 1. Okay. So obviously it's kind of tedious to type step or over, over and over again. So you may want to remap this to some other keys. And to do that, I'm going to open my VimRC, and I'm going to do some remapping. I already have this remap in my old VimRC, so I'm just going to copy it over. And you can see that here are my key bindings. So I'm just going to copy this over. You can set these keys to whatever you like. I'm setting it to leader plus these keys. Just it's just my personal preference, nothing beyond that. And the leader key, if you don't map the leader key, it's just a backslash by default. So if you save this and source this file again, go back here, and we can step through the code much easier without typing the commands, just with the keyboard shortcuts. Okay. And now we can just stop the debugging session, and we can quit the GDB, and just get out of Vim. Okay. The other thing I want to mention for the debugging is that you can have debugging configurations, because it's kind of tedious to type in the command line arguments every time. So there's a way that you can have a single command in Vim that, excuse me, that is mapped to a certain configuration. And so you can create a file called .exrc in your project directory. Okay, and in here you are going to use the command. Command is a command that is called command, and the name of the command that you want to create, and the actual content of the command. Okay, and for example, the first configuration we want is run-cache 11082 debug, and make sure that your command is your command starts with a capital letter without underscores. That's the convention for Vim commands. And to make Vim source this file, so by default, Vim is not going to read this file. To make Vim read this file, you have to enable it. So you have to do set exrc in your vimrc exit, and now when you open the project directory with Vim, it should source any exrc file, .exrc file within that directory. And now you can just, so you can do term debug as usual to go to the terminal, to go to the debugging configuration. But now you don't have to run with all the complicated command line arguments. You can just do debug A. That's the first configuration, and it should set all the command line arguments for you. We're going to stop this and quit the debugger. and just get out of Vim. Okay, I think that's this almost all the things you can do in Vim in terms of debugging. It's not as feature rich as some other editors like VS Code or CLine. But if you insist on debugging in the command line, this is probably the best way you can do it. There's also the TUI mode that you can try. That's you can type GDB P5 as usual, and you can call run with -cache 10.8. I forgot what the last number was. Let's just do 2 debug, and actually I think, well, let's just go. It's going to get into a seg fault, but that's not the point. You can do Control-X-A to go to the terminal user interface mode, and you can look up all kinds of commands here, but basically it just allows you to see the source code as you debug. And there's also something called single key mode. You can do Control-X-S to go to the single key mode, and you can press S to step, but we already had a seg fault. It's not going to do anything. I'm not going to go much in depth in this because I don't expect people to use this that much. Okay, and the next thing that I want to talk about for Vim is the auto-completion. This is quite essential for efficient development. So the auto-completion engine that we are going to use is called the Clown D. That's a language. That's a C++ language server. So as you can see here, that is Clown D, part of the Clown project, I guess. And you can see get started. And so this is just a language server. And it just runs in the background, and you can, it reads your project and gives you information about it. And you have to use this with an editor plugin. And of course, VS Code has it because this language server protocol is started by Microsoft. But we are going to use Vim primarily. And you will need the language server protocol client to interface with ClownD. And in here, they are recommending you complete me, but I cannot install it onto the UGC Linux machine because I don't have the root access. But the one that I did manage to get to work is called the coc.nvim. So take a look at this one. And this one is the one that we are going to install. And it's quite popular. You can see that it has 14,000 stars. That's quite a bit. And so as you can see from the quick start, it says that you need Node.js larger than 10.12. And so here's the command for you to install Node.js. So if we try this one, I don't think that will work because we don't have sudo privilege. So I'm going to install that by hand. So let's search Node.js and go to the download tab. And you see that there is Linux binaries x64. That is the architecture for our servers. So right click, and you're going to copy the address of this link. then we're going to go back to our root directory, and we are just going to do a wget and paste that URL that we just copied. We are going to wget it just in our home directory. Since I already have this file, yeah, I think I already have this file, so it's not repeating it. But yeah, make sure that you have this file over here. The next thing to do is to do a tar-xf of this file. All right, this is going to take a moment, and I will come back after it's done. All right, it is done and decompressing. So we can see that the decompressed folder is over here, and we want to rename this folder for convenience, or you can just keep it the way it is. Just call it node, maybe. Okay. And the last thing that you want to do is to, in terms of installing Node.js, is to add the path to the node binary. So as you can see that there is a binary folder in Node, and that is the directory that we want to add to our path. So you want to do export path equals to path, and append that with home, your net ID, and node bin. All right. So you want to run this command, or you can just put this into your bash RC. So that would be the more recommended way to do it. Put this line of code into your bash RC and source your bash RC. And if you have it successfully installed, when you type which node, it should give you the path to, to the node binary. Mine is in the Node.js bin, but it doesn't really matter. I have another installation. Okay, so now we are ready to install COC VIM. So let's just go back to this page, and you can see that for VIM plug users, you can just copy this line of code and put it in our VimRC. It has to be between plug begin and plug end. Why is it doing that? Okay. And the other thing that you have to do is to have the coc.nvim configuration. So you can basically just copy and paste all of this into your VimRC, or you can put it into another file and source that file in your VimRC as well if you want a cleaner setup. But for simplicity, I'm just going to put them in here, and oh man, that looks ugly. What is going on? I'm just trying to copy and paste. Oh. I mean, it's looking really ugly, but it seems that I hope it works. No, I don't think that's gonna work. So what I think what is happening is that Vim is trying to format everything that you copied instead of just copying it literally. So the solution to this is to copy this with Emacs instead. So we are going to open our VimRC with Emacs, and yeah, just paste it in here in Emacs, and Control X, Control S to save it, Control X, Control C to quit. Well, what can you do? And you should be able to see that all of this is here. And it's going to complain about the unknown functions because we haven't installed coc.nvim just yet. So we are going to do a plug install. And it's going to take a moment, and it's done. Okay. So now our coc.nvim is installed. The next thing that we want is coc vim clone d, and so basically this one, and you can follow the quick start over here. So basically we have done this part, coc and vim. We installed the Node.js and coc and vim, and so this is the next step that we want to do. So let's just open up our project and do coc install, and coc clone d. All right, and it should tell you that this is installed. Press Q to close that tab, and the last thing you have to do is to actually install clone d, and it seems that the plugin can do this for you. So just do as they say. Do a coc command, and you don't want to type in the rest just yet. You want to do enter, and then you can type in clone d. Well, it's not showing up. So I think you have to open the .c file first, and do coc command clone d. Now you can do install, and that should just handle everything automatically. And now if you try to type in something, maybe you have to do something here. Actually, this is not working. So it turns out that the problem is that there's a setting that you have to do to get the clone d to work, and you can do that with coc config, and it's going to it's going to open the file, and here you want to put in the path to the clone D in here, and you can just copy this path. That should work just fine, unless your clone D is updated in the future. And obviously you want to replace this with whatever your net ID is. And so if you do this, it should work. And let's just open the cache and try to type something in here. So CLC start. And you should see something that is similar to what is given to you in VS Code or some other IDEs. Okay. And of course, it has syntax checking as well. It's telling me that I'm missing a semicolon. Okay. That was actually quite complicated. And if you run into a problem with this setup, you probably just have to figure it out yourself by searching through Stack Overflow or Git issues. And I try not to expect that UTAs know how to do this. This is only for those who are, adamant with command line interface. Okay. I think this is as much as you can possibly get out of the command line. And if you want anything more than this, you probably would need to move to a fully featured IDE instead. Okay, I think that's all I want to say. And I hope that helps. If it doesn't, and you're on your own, figure out things yourself.